All right, welcome to the Reliability and Security Oversight. Oh, I can't speak already. Welcome to the Reliability and Security Oversight Monthly Update today. My name is Maylee Cook, and I'm happy to be here with you. I missed hanging out with you last month. I know you were in good hands with my buddy Travis, but glad to be back. Let's go ahead and start today with some announcements. First up, we have our Reliability in the West discussion series. We will have that on November 6th from 11 to noon, and that will be the final discussion of 2024. So we hope to see you there. We are also looking forward to our reliability and security workshop, not next week, but the week after. The in-person seats are almost gone. So if you're hoping to come in person, I would not wait. I would get registered quickly for those. If you're not able to come in person, we'd still love for you to join us virtually. We'll drop the information in the chat for you to access the registration. We also have a virtual session of our grid fundamentals coming up in November. That will be November 5th and 6th, and those sessions will be 2 4-hour afternoon sessions from 1 to 5 Mountain. We'll have the link for registration in the chat. We are happy to introduce our compliance fundamentals. This will be a webinar held on November 14th from 9 a.m. to noon Mountain. This one has a focus for our low risk entities and will provide essential knowledge for small, currently registered entities on low impact physical security, transient cyber asset, and removable media, as well as the basics of protection systems, automatic reclosing, sudden pressure relaying maintenance. This will not focus on IBRs, but it should be a great 3-hour session for you, and we would love to see you there. And the information for that is in the chat as well. Our antitrust policy. All WECC meetings are conducted in accordance with the WECC antitrust policy and the NERC antitrust compliance guidelines. All participants must comply with the policy and guidelines. This meeting is public, confidential, or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. By participating, you give your consent for your name, voice, image, and likeness to be included in that recording. WECC strives to ensure the information presented today is accurate and reflects the views of WECC. However, all interpretations and positions are subject to change. If you have any questions, please contact WECC's legal counsel. All right, we're going to start off today with an update from Curtis Cruz on Project 2024-03.
Thank you, Maylee. I appreciate that. It looks like a great opportunity in the next few weeks to have some great interactions. Being on Project 2403, that's about EOP 12, the updates to make it EOP 12-3. It's been a very energetic opportunity for folks, a great team to work with. You may have noticed a couple things this week, or at least this week, it is posted out there for review. So please take a moment to look at the directives that were given by FERC in the June order and how we address those as a team. I think we're very effective in trying to get the most efficient and effective language to capture the directives and to provide the flexibility needed to ensure reliable operations. There's a couple things of note there. There's a technical rationale that's been updated quite a bit. Really associated with a lot of the directives, but also associated with other things that weren't in the directives that as a team we felt needed to be addressed. ECWT calculations was one of the things that we felt needed to be addressed. One document that's not up there posted yet, but should be hopefully soon, is a revamp of the ECWT calculation document that came out with the EOP 12-1 group. We felt it needed to be updated a little bit to discuss other avenues for data and resources and also address the opportunities with missing data. I know that's a concern out there, and I'm sure we'll have some questions in Portland about that. But please take a moment, take a look at it. It's some pretty good work by the team that's out there. It's a great team to work with. We did have, per the directives, the opportunity for CAP extensions, corrective action plan extensions, and generator cold weather constraint identifications and how NERC had to process those. FERC basically said NERC had to receive, review, evaluate, and validate constraints. So we did an effective approach on that, creating an attachment that talked about constraints, redefined what a generator cold weather constraint was, and provided a draft process. Now, the draft process is not a votable item. It's not an item that you get to vote on, but certainly the ERO enterprise, me for sure, wants to hear comments on that process and how we can improve that process. It was built on the TPL 7 process, which was approved a couple of years ago. But it does capture a lot of what you may consider as constraints. It does capture opportunities for cap extensions. Hopefully we'll get a flow diagram put up in the technical rationale with the next posting. We had some team members that worked very hard on a flow diagram to show how caps would work and constraints would work based on the new FERC directives. So I'll be looking forward to that. Next week, I believe it is on the 24th, we also are having a webinar. So on the 24th from 1 to 2:30 Eastern, we're going to have a WebEx, and team members from that standard drafting team are going to be on there talking about what we did with the standard. But I appreciate everybody that has been involved in that development process. Appreciate working with that team quite a bit and look forward to good comments from you. And that's pretty much all I have for today, Maylee. I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you for that update, Curtis. I'm not seeing any questions for you at this time, but I appreciate you giving that update. We'll turn the time now over to Mark Rogers and Abby Fellinger for an IBR initiative update.
Yes, I was muted. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending. And Abby's put me in charge of this, so I'll see what I can do. Next slide, please. So WECC wanted to give an update from an ERO perspective. The notification went out on this past Monday from NERC that we will have a webinar from an ERO IBR registration webinar. And November 13th, 2024, 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. And the key points to this webinar is an introduction to NERC and ESISAC. A lot of you are already familiar, but we're trying to also engage those who may be the first time hearing about NERC and the regions. We'll look at IBR initiative milestones and the work plan currently going on, status and results of the ERO RFI to the BAs and TOs from each region, standards and order 901 milestones and updates, compliance and enforcement expectations for the future, and communications resources that you may be able to get in contact with. Next slide, please. And then we'll have the regional registration panel. That will be the ORCG primaries. What we'll do is we'll have a presentation, introductions of regional staff, basically so that, again, folks who may not be engaged with NERC or WECC can have an opportunity to meet us, and then also who the staff that they can get in contact with. We'll discuss basic regional processes, discuss new entity engagement through an RFI and asset verification form that each region will be engaging with in all new assets and new entities. And then what entity information will be expected. And then there's a tentative next webinar in February 2025. We don't have a date yet, but we're working on that. So stay tuned. And there's a registration for that webinar on November 13th. So reach out there and get registered so you can get in on the webinar. Maylee, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that update. I don't think we have any questions for you at this time, and appreciate you giving that. We'll go ahead on to our next topic. This will be self-certifications with internal controls questions, which will be Fahad and Stacia. So I will turn the time over to them.
Thank you, Maylee. My name is Stacia Carron, and I am a manager of entity monitoring here at WECC. My team focuses on the low inherent risk entities. And Fahad, I'll let you introduce yourself before we dive in.
Hi, I'm Fahad Ansari, Senior Technical Advisor under Oversight Planning Group.
Thank you. Okay, going on to the next slide. We are going to talk about some self-certifications that were sent out this year. Okay, so we sent out some self-certifications in August and September to a quarter of registered entities in WECC's footprint. These self-certifications included internal controls questions that registered entities are expected to answer. Now, there were two groups of self-certifications that were sent out. One group received only EOP 11 questions, and the other received EOP 11 and SIP 3 low impact questions. One of the groups that we targeted were the low impact entities, and we focused on Southern California. Now, why Southern California? Because it is one of the biggest load pockets in the Western Interconnection. And so this is where we are focusing our efforts this round of self-certifications. The due date for the self-certifications for the high inherent risk entities was on October 15th, earlier this week, and the due date for the low inherent risk entities is on November 4th. And on the next slide, I'll turn it over to Fahad to go over the risks that we identified.
Thank you, Stacia. So there has been several questions related to why have we selected these requirements, why EOP 11 and why SIP 3. So I'm here to give a quick and short debrief as to what led to selecting these standards. WECC has identified cold weather preparedness as a high risk across the Western Interconnect. And as part of the cold weather preparedness strategy, the idea is to conduct these self-certifications to gain information on how entities are approaching these prior to winter preparedness. The idea is it came apparent from the 2022 Winter Storm Elliott report, but prior to that, it has been informed in various other data points. So as an example, in the 2023 ERO Reliability Risk Priorities report, it was mentioned that extreme cold weather can cause higher than anticipated demand, overloading and stress failure of the BPS equipment, increased reliance on interdependent critical infrastructure, and degradation of energy availability via resource mechanical failure or fuel supply interruption. So there are various causes that can lead to widespread disruption, and it is important for the regions to understand how the entity plans for and progress toward mitigating risk for the upcoming winter and going forward. So a couple of years back, NERC alerts were issued that included recommendations and essential actions through a series of cold weather preparedness preparations for extreme weather events. There were also an industry-wide advisory alert. We also conducted a small group advisory sessions to provide an educational opportunity for registered entities to meet with NERC and regional entity representatives to discuss the cold weather preparedness standards and possible compliance approaches in an open and non-audit environment. So it was only logical next step to gain more information through this process, and this is something that we want to try and gain more information through these self-certification. As the Winter Storm Elliott report mentioned, the major concerns were related to implementation of generation freeze protection measures, implementation of enhanced cold weather preparedness plans, and the annual training required for maintenance and operations personnel. So most of the questions in the self-certifications are related to these items. Again, the idea is to gain a pulse check on how the entities are with regard to these preparedness, and we'll utilize that information to inform our future monitoring activities. Next slide, Stacia. With regard to SIP3, we specifically wanted to take a look at the controls related to physical security, electronic access, and transient cyber assets and removable media, malicious code risk mitigation for the low impact assets. WECC has recently been monitoring entities for low impact requirements and has identified gaps and risks related to these entities. So instead of conducting full-blown audits and including SIP3 in scope, the best use of resources is to gain a preliminary information on how entities are approaching SIP low impact through self-certifications. That was a quick gist as to how risk informed these selection of these two standards. Next slide, Stacia.
Thank you, Fahad. So let's go over some of the self-certification expectations. And now I understand that some of you on this call did not receive this self-certification, but it is likely in the future that you could. So with the self-certification, we expect you to review the applicable standards and determine whether your entity is compliant, non-compliant, not applicable, or do not own. And then with the internal controls questions, we are expecting you to provide a brief narrative response to each of the questions that are posted in Align. We do not want you to provide any evidence, files, or documentation outside of Align. We want all of the questions to be narrative within those boxes, those fields within Align. And going on to the next slide. So our future steps, one of the things that we are hoping to accomplish here is to identify best practices related to these two standards. We will assess whether additional monitoring and outreach is needed as we go through in reviewing the responses that the entities provided to us. We are going to incorporate this information into compliance oversight plans. And then we will conduct more self-certifications for low inherent risk entities in other geographical locations within the Western Interconnection. I will say that we do not anticipate to have any RFIs or interviews in this process, with the exception of there were a handful of entities that did not have the internal controls questions attached to their self-certification. So we did send an RFI with the internal controls questions that the other entities did receive. So going on to the next slide, are there any questions for myself or Fahad?
Thank you for giving that update. Let's give it a second. We'll see if any questions have come in. I did get a question that said, did the CC indicate that there is a revised NERC ECWT calculation document? If so, where is that document located? Does that refer to your presentation, or is that Curtis's? Okay, I was like, it seems like maybe we jumped sections a little bit.
No, that's perfectly okay. Yeah, I have sent a note to the NERC developer, as a matter of fact, saying, hey, where did that document go? Apparently, there's still a few red lines in there that the team needs to address before it is posted. So I'm already working with the NERC staff on getting that posted out there. I will tell you that we did some extensive work. We added some more data sources, i.e. the ASOS data source. It's another opportunity to gather data about temperature out there versus the NOAA NWS service that's out there. We also mentioned buoy. There's a buoy service out there for those offshore plants that are out there across the United States. And I don't know if we have any out here in WECC. I haven't even asked yet. But for offshore plants, we need to consider how ECWT is calculated and where they get that information. There was a lot of additional information in that ECWT new document about missing data and how you are to manage missing data. And again, I want to make it clear that we realize as the ERO enterprise, and I think the industry does, that you're not going to be able to have 55,000 points from a data source that you don't control always in your hand. I think that's one of the conditions that we have to recognize. And I'll have more to say about that October 29th or 30th, whenever Maylee told me to be on the stage in Portland. But I think it's important to recognize that there are some risks there that we need to talk about and walk our way through. In compliance, it's all about what you can do and the story you can tell and provide to folks like Stacia so they feel comfortable in evaluating that from a compliance perspective. So look forward to that conversation. Hopefully that answered the question too.
I
As soon
believe
as it
it
gets
did.
posted, I'll ask Maylee to forward it to folks, and that way it'll be out there again. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we're happy to get the word out when it arrives. Thank you for jumping in to answer that question. I have not seen any other questions at the moment. Although sometimes I say that and they instantly appear. So we'll give it one more beat. But I want to thank all of our presenters for coming today and giving you these updates and providing this information for all of you and for all of you being here. I'm still not seeing any questions, so we can go to our next slide and we'll wrap a little early today. We hope to see you next month on November 21st, same time, 2 p.m. Mountain, and have a great rest of your day.